How many psalms will it take, Kane, to fill the belly of a god?
The blue flames had scoured the temple of ASSHUR clean, but they could not cleanse Kane's memory of what he had seen there. An entire tribe fed to appetites that were old when Babylon was young. His steel had come too late for all save one, a young woman whose dark eyes held secrets that made even his war-hardened soul uneasy. The merchant vessel that bore them westward across the Atlantic reeked of human misery and salt rot. Kane sat with his back to the hull's rough planking, his worn rapier across his knees, watching the woman sleep. She had not spoken since he cut her chains in those demon-haunted ruins. Sometimes she would wake and stare at him with an expression that was neither fear nor gratitude, but something that made his hand drift to the Bible in his coat. The Portuguese crew gave them wide berth. Sailors know when a thing is wrong, when the very air around a person has the taste of copper and old incense. Louisiana rose from the sea like something that had crawled from deeper waters and not yet decided whether to live or die. The port of Biloxi sprawled across the delta, a huddle of rotting wood and desperate men, scratching existence from fever swamp and savage-haunted wilderness. Kane's boots struck the dock with the woman close behind him. She moved like a shadow, silent, her threadbare dress hanging loose on a gaunt frame. They had not gone 50 paces before a red-faced colonist blocked their path, his eyes, small and pig-like, fixed on the woman. "You sellin', friend?" Kane's gray eyes were winter ice. "No." "Pity." The man spat tobacco juice into the mud. "Boudreaux's been losing blacks for 3 months now. Beasts taking them in the night. Some kind of wolf thing, the slaves say. Man who could stop it would earn good coin. And we'd pay fair price for strong chattel to replace what's been killed." Another voice called from a tavern door, thick with morning liquor but eager. "Boudreaux's desperate. $20 Spanish if you can end it." Kane stood silent, weighing. Then, "If a man wished to rid you of this curse, where would he find Boudreaux?" They told him. Upriver, 20 miles through Cyprus and black water. The flatboat poleman was a taciturn Choctaw who took Kane's silver and asked no questions. The woman sat in the bow, hands folded in her lap, watching the swamp slide past with eyes that seemed to mark every shadow, every hanging moss, every snake-thick root. Kane watched her watching, and felt that crawling sensation at the base of his skull, the same sensation that had saved his life in a score of demon-haunted places. Something was amiss. Something had always been amiss. But the girl was innocent. She had been chained. She had been victim. Kane's jaw tightened. He would find her sanctuary, and he would slay whatever beast plagued this plantation. It was what he did. It was all he knew. The plantation emerged from the swamp like a fever dream, whitewashed wood sagging on its foundations, slave quarters in neat rows behind it, and beyond that the eternal press of wilderness waiting, patient as death. Boudreaux met them at the landing. He was a florid man gone to seed, his French finery stained with sweat and wine. But his eyes were keen when they fixed on Kane's weapons, his scarred face, the way he moved like a stalking wolf. "Monsieur, you've come about the trouble." "I kill things that need killing," Kane said, flat and cold. "Your men tell me you have need of such service." 3 slaves in as many weeks, dragged screaming from their cabins. What we found. Boudreaux's hand shook as he gestured toward the slave quarters. "I'm a rational man, monsieur. I studied in Paris. But rational men must still reckon with what kills their property. Your price? 20 Spanish dollars when it ends. Room and board till then." Boudreaux's eyes flicked to the woman. "And for her, she stays in the house, under guard. Marguerite can watch her. Been with my family 40 years. She can be trusted." They followed Boudreaux up to the great house, its interior scarce cooler than the furnace air outside, high ceilings availing naught against the Louisiana heat. An old negress emerged from the shadows of the upper hallway as they climbed. Her skin was like weathered mahogany, her hair white and wrapped in a tignon, her eyes bright as a hawk's. She wore the simple dress of a house slave, but she carried herself with a dignity that made the word seem a mockery. Tante Marguerite. Her gaze fell upon the young woman and stopped dead. The old woman's face went gray as ashes. Her hand came up in a warding sign, fingers spread, thumb folded across the palm. Her lips moved in what might have been prayer or malediction. The young woman looked up at her and smiled. It was a sweet smile, empty. Utterly empty. Tante Marguerite took a step backward, but she said not then. Kane spent the next day learning Boudreaux's land. The overseer, a brutal piece of work named Chevalier with sun-cured leather for skin, showed him where the slaves had been taken. "Here," Chevalier said, pointing to a cabin at the quarter's far end. "Joseph, strong as an ox. We heard him screaming nigh midnight. Time I got here with my musket, the door was torn clean off and he was gone. Found bits of him a mile into the swamp." Kane knelt by the puddle, studying the tracks in the mud. The rain had softened them, but the claw marks were unmistakable, deep as dirk cuts, spaced wrong for any natural wolf. He leaned closer to the water and froze. The reflection staring back was not his own. A thing of bone-white spines and hundreds of eyes gazed up at him from the muddy water, its lamprey mouth yawning wide, concentric teeth grinding in silent hunger. The vision lasted but a heartbeat. Then it was gone, replaced by Kane's own scarred visage. He did not flinch. He had walked too many demon-haunted roads to startle at omens. But his hand found his Bible, and his jaw tightened. He did not receive such warnings lightly. In 3 decades of hunting evil, the visions came only when something vast stirred, something that sensed him as much as he sensed it. "You are here," he whispered to the rippling water, "or you are coming." The puddle offered no answer save the reflection of his own grim face. Kane rose, his rapier scraping against its scabbard. Whatever had sent the werewolves was but a harbinger. The true darkness still waited, patient as the grave. Kane examined the splintered door frame. The claw marks were deep as dirk cuts. Whatever had done this possessed strength beyond any natural wolf. The other 2, same. Always by night, always from the quarters. Never touches the house nor white folk. Chevalier spat. Blacks say it's judgment from God. Superstitious brutes. Kane said naught. What men named superstition was oft but truth that affrighted them. He spent the day reconnoitering the swamp's edge, and by evening he had found what he sought. 3 miles in, where cypress roots twisted like devil's fingers, and water ran black as sticks. A collapsed trapper's hut. The ground was trampled flat. Human bones lay strewn in the mire, picked clean. The stench was abominable. He marked the place and returned as the sun bled into the western trees. That night, Tante Marguerite sought him on the gallery where he sat cleaning his rapier by lamplight. She came slowly, her old bones protesting, and when she spoke, her voice was scarce above a whisper. "Monsieur Kane, I must speak with you of the girl." Kane's gray eyes studied her. "Speak, then." "That child." Marguerite's hands twisted together. "I have seen her, not as she appears, yet appear to be." "Explain yourself." "She changes, monsieur. Her eyes, her voice, the way she moves when she thinks none observe. Sometimes she is a frightened child. Sometimes..." The old woman's voice dropped lower still. "Sometimes she is a thing that has forgot what fear means. I have seen the like before in Saint-Domingue. Before the revolution, before the burning, Kane's hand stilled on his blade. What saw you in Saint-Domingue? A Beaucourt brought back somewhat that should not have been brought. It wore a child like a man wears a cloak, smiled with the child's mouth, spoke with the child's voice, but it was not the child anymore. It was a thing riding inside, biding its time. The night air pressed close and heavy, thick with the reek of rotting vegetation and something else, something that set Kane's instincts screaming like a hunting cat's. What became of the child in Saint-Domingue? They burned the whole village to stop it. Marguerite's eyes met his, but it was too late by then. Kane stood silent, weighing cold steel against hot faith, experience against hope. At length, "You are certain?" "As certain as I am that death waits for all flesh, monsieur." "Then we lay a trap." Kane found the were-things the next night. They died hard, silver-shot and cold steel, ending what moon madness had begun. But as the last one lay dying, its body shifting back to human seeming, it gasped words that confirmed Marguerite's warning. "Please, I willed it not. The curse." Blood bubbled from its lips. "There is somewhat worse coming. The girl. Then death took it, and its eyes went glassy in the moonlight. Kane stood in the swamp silence, blood dripping from his blade, and knew what must be done. He returned to find Boudreau drunk and jubilant, convinced the threat was ended. The Frenchman insisted on a proper celebration, house slaves preparing victuals, wine flowing like water, the overseer and neighboring planters coming to toast the grim Englishman who'd saved their property. Kane let them make merry. He had need of the chaos. He found Marguerite in the kitchen and spoke low. "Tonight, during the celebration, you will confront her, make her show her true face." The old woman's hands trembled. "Monsieur, if I be mistaken, you are not mistaken." Kane's voice was granite. "I shall be ready. But we must force her hand ere she grows stronger. And if she slays me, then I send her back to whatever hell spawned her." Kane's hand rested on his rapier hilt. "But you will not die, Marguerite. I have hunted worse things than demons, and all bleed." The old woman studied his face, scarred, weathered, hard as Old Testament wrath. and slowly nodded. The celebration filled the great house with noise and lamplight. Planters and overseers crowded the dining room, drunk on Boudreaux's wine and relief. Slaves moved through the press bearing platters, their faces carefully blank. The young woman sat in the corner, eating slowly, watching all with those dark, fathomless eyes. Kane stood near the door, his back to the wall, his hand never straying far from steel. Marguerite approached the girl bearing a tray. She set it down. Then, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, she spoke in Creole thick French. "I know what you are, child. I have seen your kind aforetime." The room's din faltered. The young woman looked up, still chewing. When she swallowed, her smile was sweet. "I understand you not, grandmother. You understand full well." Marguerite's voice grew stronger. "You wear her like a gown, but I see the seams. I see what stirs beneath. Old thing, ancient thing, thing that devours children and names it holy." The temperature plummeted. Conversation died utterly. The young woman rose slowly, very slowly. And when she spoke, her voice was still sweet, still innocent, but there was somewhat underneath now, somewhat that made grown men step back, unknowing why. The old woman is mazed. She sees phantoms. "I see you." Marguerite raised her voice to a shout. "I name you, demon. I name you." The young woman's head tilted at an angle no human neck should achieve. "Names," she whispered. And then the change came upon her. The transformation was not slow nor gradual. The girl's mouth stretched wider, ever wider, until it became a lamprey's maw. Concentric rings of teeth descending into a gullet that glowed orange-red like a bronze furnace stoked to hell heat. Her skin split and peeled backward. Beneath lay more. Chitinous plates, the hue of old bone, erupted through flesh that had never been true flesh, only a mask worn thin. Her limbs lengthened with wet, snapping sounds, bones multiplying, joints bending wrongly. Eyes sprouted along their length, scores of red-brown eyes weeping and blinking, swiveling to fix upon all at once. Great serpentine members burst from her swelling torso, thick as a strong man's thigh, their purple-black surfaces studded with yet more eyes. Where their caustic slime touched wood, it smoked and blackened. Round what had been her head, bone-white spines branched outward like some devil's crown. Eyes nested in each joint. The central mass was dominated by the mouth, those grinding rings of teeth like millstones, the throat beyond glowing with 3,000 years of devouring. The sheer bulk of it. The girl had weighed mayhap 90 pounds. This thing filled half the room, pressed against walls, made the house timbers groan and crack. Tendrils writhed from every surface, some ending in eyes, others in smaller lamprey mouths, others in organs that owned no earthly name. And suspended from the appendages in cocoons of translucent membrane were the visages, the faces of Boudreaux's missing slaves, pressed against the tissue like children against window glass, their mouths agape in endless, silent screaming, living, aware, being slowly consumed. Fragments of the girl remain scattered across its surface, her small hands grafted onto tentacles, her eyes trapped in the bone crown, weeping, her voice shrieking from random mouths across the bulk, begging it cease. The stench struck like a fist, fermentation, vitriol, the sweet reek of 1,000 bodies dissolved across millennia. When it drew breath, the whole mass swelled, revealing internal chambers where lesser horrors stirred in darkness. Those hundreds of eyes turned upon Marguerite. "I am Moloch," it said. And the voice was not sound, but pressure, vibration that bypassed ears and manifested straight in the mind, bringing visions, Phoenician babes sliding into the bronze idol's maw, Carthaginian pyres, 3,000 years of suffering crushed into one eternal instant. I am the eater of children. I am the furnace that burns nations. And you, old woman, have spoken my name. Boudreaux's mind snapped like a rotten stick. He dropped his wine cup and began laughing, blood vessels bursting in his eyes. The other planters fled, screaming, trampling each other in their terror. The house slaves stood frozen, every muscle locked by primal dread. A massive tentacle shot toward Marguerite, lamprey mouth yawning wide. And Kane's rapier took it clean through, pinning it to the floorboards. "In the name of God and all that is holy," Kane said, his voice cold as winter iron, "I cast you down." The demon's hundreds of eyes swiveled toward him. For a heartbeat there was silence, the silence of somewhat ancient, recognizing somewhat implacable. Then Moloch laughed. The sound was like the burning of cities, the wailing of mothers, the shattering of temple stones. It was 3 millennia of anguish compressed into one terrible note. Oh, Puritan, thought you yourself ready? Thought you your steel and scripture could end what began ere Abraham walked the earth? Kane's second blade came out, his dirk, the one he'd blessed in blood and prayer after slaying a vampire in the Carpathians. I have killed older things than you. Older. The demon's form swelled, tentacles smashing through furniture, appendages spawning more appendages. I am Moloch. I am the bronze bull. Phoenician children screamed my name. Carthage burned at my altar. And you are dust. Less than dust. The psychic assault struck like a ram. Kane's nose bled, his ears bled, but his hand stayed steady on his blade. Behind him, Marguerite was chanting, old words, African words, mingled with Latin, mingled with somewhat that antedated both. Her hands moved in patterns that left glowing trails on the air. The demon marked it. A dozen tentacles lashed toward her. Kane moved. His rapier danced, steel singing, severing limbs that sprouted fresh eyes even as they fell. His dirk plunged into the central mass, and where it bit, flesh blackened and smoked like bacon on a griddle. The creature shrieked, a sound that burst windows, that made the house beams groan. You cannot slay me, Puritan. I am deathless. Naught is deathless save God. Kane's voice was flat, emotionless. The voice of a man who'd walked through perdition and emerged harder than what sought to keep him. All else bleeds. His rapier found an eye cluster and drove home. Ichor sprayed, black and smoking. The demon thrashed, smashing through the wall, and Kane held fast, twisting the blade, feeling bones grind and organs rupture. Marguerite's chant reached its crescendo. Her hands blazed with light that was not fire, blue-white and cold as judgment itself. The demon felt it, understood what was upon it. No. Too late. Marguerite's hands clapped together, and the light exploded outward in a wave that Kane felt rather than saw. A pressure that pushed against his very soul, but recognized him as ally and passed through harmless. The demon passed not through. Moloch shrieked, a sound that transcended hearing and went straight to the marrow. The tentacles began to wither, the eyes to burst like rotten fruit. The massive form collapsed inward, flesh dissolving. The stolen faces in their membranes finally released into death's mercy. And standing amidst the dissolving abomination, drenched in ichor and trembling, stood the girl. Only the girl. For one heartbeat, her eyes were brown, human, free. Then the light went out of them, and she fell. Kane caught her ere she struck the floor. but he knew even as his hands closed around her small frame that she was already gone. The body was light as kindling, empty as a cast-off coat. He knelt there in the ruin of Boudreaux's house, covered in demon blood, holding a dead child, and felt something break inside his chest that prayer could not mend. Marguerite sagged against the wall, her face gray with exhaustion. Baptiste helped her forward, and the old woman's eyes, ancient, knowing, terrible in their wisdom, met Kane's across the carnage. "She is gone, Monsieur Kane." "I know." His voice was stone. "No." Marguerite's hand found his shoulder, her grip surprisingly strong. "You do not understand. God has taken her soul. That is where she belongs. In his hands, not in this world of mud and devils." Kane looked down at the girl's face. Peaceful now. The first peace she'd known since ASSHUR'S priests had chained her to their altar. "I tried to save her." "You did save her." Marguerite's voice was fierce. "The demon is gone, banished back to whatever hell spawned it. And her soul." The old woman's eyes glistened. "I saw it with these eyes, monsieur. When the light came, I saw it rise from her body like smoke, like a bird, free, finally free from Moloch's hunger. She's still dead. But her death is mercy, not damnation." Marguerite straightened, her voice taking on the cadence of ritual. "You are but a man, Solomon Kane. You did more than any man could. You sent an ancient evil back to perdition. You freed 40 souls from their torment. And you gave this child what 3,000 years of priests could not release." Kane stood slowly, the girl's body still cradled in his arms. Around them, Boudreaux's surviving slaves were emerging from their paralysis, staring at the ruin with wide eyes. "She deserved better," Kane said quietly. "She deserved to have never been born into a world with such evil in it." Marguerite's voice was hard, but since she deserved a warrior to stand between her and the darkness. She got that, monsieur. At the end, she got that. Kane looked at the old woman for a long moment. Then he nodded once, a small, terrible gesture of acceptance. "Where should I bury her?" "Not here." Marguerite gestured toward the plantation, the swamp, the whole accursed territory. "This ground is tainted." "The mission at Natchez. The Jesuits will take her. They will give her Christian burial in consecrated earth. Then I ride tonight. You are wounded. I ride tonight. Kane's gray eyes were flint. She has waited long enough for peace. They wrapped her in clean linen. Baptiste brought Kane's weapons cleaned of ichor. The slaves gathered in silence as Kane carried the small bundle to where the Choctaw waited. Marguerite followed to the landing. False dawn broke greenish over the swamp. The demon, Kane said. It's not dead. Things that old do not die easy, monsieur. Marguerite's face was grave. It is banished, wounded. But Moloch will find new vessels, new children. Then this is not over. For her, it is over. For you, the old woman studied his face. You are bound now, you and it. You have tasted its essence. It has tasted yours. Kane's jaw tightened. Then let it come. Marguerite made the sign of the cross over the bundle. What you did here tonight, it mattered. Kane stepped into the flatboat. The Choctaw pushed off into black water. Marguerite turned to Baptiste. Burn the house. Burn it all. And us, Tante? We go north, away from this darkness. Behind them, flames rose from Boudreaux's great house, orange and hungry, cleansing fire. And somewhere in the swamp, Solomon Kane poled north with his terrible burden, his face set like stone. The girl was free, but Kane would carry her ghost for the rest of his days.